It's Saturday, the 30th of December, day before New Year's Eve. So New Year's Eve, wrapping up a year here and doing some new angle things. So I got a little weird kind of vibe with the angle of the camera. I had to work on that. This is a totally impromptu, just totally out of blue thing we're doing, and we're going to see how it works. We're going to make it happen. I just finished recording. I just finished actually putting down what I should have did last week, which was the yearly wrap up, the year in review. Planned on doing that last week for the Christmas weekend. Things got a little out of hand and it didn't happen. And so it's here for this week. And just it's kind of a good thing because the week in review is pretty depressing. I'll go into some of the details on some of the stories for this week that popped out, but there's a lot of death and despair, and unfortunately, a lot of recaps from the Christmas holiday where a lot of very famous people weren't very good to their children. That's what got the drama, and so that's what came up there. So what we're doing here is going to be a sort of a year in review of what happened. We'll do some of the stories for the year. We'll do some stories of the week, if you will, and do some of the bragging and some of the crying over the past year. That's been the Conversation Project and me, Jay Cleveland Payne. If you haven't been here before, my name is Jay Cleveland Payne, and I present for you here, as you see in the Chiron, the Media Observer for the Conversation Project. Over the past 10 years, this website, this domain has existed to talk to people about things, be conversational. It began back in the days when everybody was doing the little survey things and make a daily survey to turn into something. And it was supposed to be actually a survey type project, back into a survey project that never came to fruition. It turned into a way to do a daily podcast, a way to do a news podcast when I couldn't find a way to do that. Even though I was working in a radio station in radio news and couldn't find a way to essentially write a script for my own podcast because I was producing and working other pieces. I turned the fact that I had the feeds for Twitter and Facebook into a way to gather your engagement scores and use engagement scores to first create a newsletter based off that and then create audios and videos going forward. Now we have a daily or a weekday morning video cast that gives you stories that are from the previous day, that tell you what things are conversational. We do something on the weekend, the weekly wrap up, which wraps up the entire week. We have various newsletters, we have various drops to do in social media and things along that like. This last year, 2023, was a trying year. It was both a actual big year of growth. We did a lot of things that were really cool happening, but a lot of things happened to me directly and to the us that is this project that kept things from going forward and actually threatened to keep things going forward beyond that. So stick around. We'll go into a lot of that stuff here. I want to do a quick little click and remind you that the Conversation Project lives online at theconversationproject.com. That's our website where you can see all the things we do. You'll see it in the scroll in the video. You'll see me talk about it back and forth. But if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, literally about what we have going on, you can go to the website and review things, look for new stuff and see what's there. The website is it's conversationproject.com. We've obviously passed that little graphic there with my girl Candace Owens. We'll talk about her a bit in the news stories of the year and doing more things as well, including adding a daily poll to the issue. So these things are going forward, trying to be more engaging, more polling with you to get more engagement going forward. As the description says, there is no rhyme or reason set for this. I just recorded the yearly thing that I did last year, and so I'm really just don't want to get into the weekly thing because it's just really depressing. I'll read some of those stories to you in a bit. So let's go back to the beginning of the year, January 2023. Lots of big ideas, lots of smooth transitions, lots of things going on. I've been in my new house for about 5-6 months and had my studio set up there. The bookshelves were there behind the scenes with things and books and the tape player and stuff like that to do whatever, and was growing in the process, doing more stuff to add into how the process worked, where things are going. We played around with formats, we played around with information, played around with things going forward, and I think we did a pretty good job, fairly great job. What really caused the issue for both growth, because we were pushing for growth anyway, and for despair and turmoil, was the March 31st tornado. The March 31st tornado meant that the entire month of April meant no recording, no work. A tornado hit Little Rock, Arkansas, and a big swath of central Arkansas on March 31st. That tornado damaged my house. It is now, like I said, the 30th of December, and we still don't have a house to live in. We have a place to stay. I'm here, obviously, but we're still dealing with a house. And to be totally honest, it's becoming a nightmare towards the final ends of the wrap up. It should be done, and things are coming up at the back end that are making issues. So on the physical issues, we don't have a house. My family does not have a house. We are staring kind of into different places. My mother-in-law lives with us, and now she's staying with another family member. My daughter, my wife, and I are in a pretty cramped apartment, but we're making it work out. An extra bedroom so I can actually record things, so we don't go completely crazy. But we're not doing as well we could on the domestic front. We're doing fine living as well. It's just we like to have our house, our stuff, our time, our space, and whatsoever. There are a lot of additions we were going to do to the studio, to the actual spacing, and to the work we're doing that sort of warranted having a place to stay and having a place to work with. We've added some things here over the past months. We've added lights, number one, so I've got lights here. We've added a second good camera. That's when something literally was added yesterday to play around with to see what's going on. So we have a different angle to work on things. We've added the way we've done a lot of work for the conversation project, and we've added a lot of people to the family. Let's start with that. Looking back in 2022, when I essentially started the daily morning updates, which was a kind of a rough thing in my living room at the time, working on that technology, these are the numbers that we had. Let's see if I can get rid of the bug. Yes. So these are the numbers we had for our views in 2022. In 2022, when we started doing this thing, you can see essentially the big hit happened in July, where we had a big old spike and we started putting things out there, making it work out. And I've been doing it since January last year. But we started actually getting traction in July with something massive. I don't know what exactly that was. And then we had some hits that were kind of roundabouts there, here, there you see, for they're coming in September. In September, that's when basically the live started. And there basically we started doing videos all the time, every single week, and doing things on the batch. You can see the arrow because I moved back and forth. But in 2022, we were doing some stuff, and then we decided to create the thing we're doing now. So we have more stuff popping up in here. So I guess basically in September we started actually doing the live stuff and the video stuff going forward. We're still doing newsletter stuff. Something we put out there spiked on that day that just all of a sudden we had a spike there. And so the fact of video was something we created for these things happened in 2022. 2023, we got to work. We took it seriously, if you will, and wanted to make things work out. As you can see, going in that year of 2022, we gained over being in YouTube for over 10 years or so and on this channel because it was just out there. 314 subscribers over the timeline of that. In 2023, we were blessed to gain 599 subscribers. We're at 919 subscribers at the moment, almost at 1,000 over the timeline. So in the last 2 years, we've grown 800 subscribers plus, which is a thing. We've grown 600 subscribers in this calendar year. So we've doubled last year's growth over time. You can see as the chart goes here, what you're looking at is where we worked, where we were doing what we were doing, trying to be productive. We had a couple spikes here, there early on, January, March. And then we basically, at the end of March, it died. We were down literally. And then we had to get back up for after April to May to get back on track. And after that, we found a way to actually sort of push and get through. There have been some down days, down weeks, and down issues. So you can see this is not the smoothest transitions. And a lot of these jumps in the actual numbers are coming from viral hits we've had from shorts, because shorts has been the way we've been able to pull things out. We've dropped in, when shorts became something that were available to everyone, more shorts, more things for people to see that were quick hits to get people in there and get a lot of responses from people. Some do subscribe and stick around. Some are quick hits that go from there and with there. But you can see our 2023 work right there. Lots of growth, lots of issues, a lot of popping up there. 599 plus subscribers without counting today and tomorrow, of course. Over 241 views overall and 6,000 watch hours over the last year. It's amazing. I have issues with monetization. I'll talk about that a little bit later, but it was amazing that we were able to get to all this stuff in this year. It's just how we got here. But one of the biggest things that kind of held us back was, of course, the tornado we already spoke about in March. The March tornado caused the family to be displaced, caused us to have no place to go. Literally my computer sitting in a gym bag, just kind of floating back and forth, waiting for a place to plug it up and waiting for space to actually work on things. I did some things last summer and on the road because I want to keep things going on via laptop. Didn't want to have to pull that out wherever we were, from hotel to hotel, from spot to spot. So it became a thing. But the biggest thing that the tornado taught me was essentially the biggest thing that restarting this thing and doing the video actually taught me was that I needed to do this. I've talked about this being a labor of labor a lot, and this has been a complete labor, and there's a lot of things going on to make it work, but this is something that I needed to do, so I kept doing it. And I'm glad that all you folks who have followed along for the ride, whether you for some reason popped in here live on Saturday morning, or will see this ad nauseum in the future, stuck around for all that's going on. So we're glad for that. Some of the things that we actually did do to improve what's going on. I mentioned lights. We added more lights to the situation, added another camera, and there's actually a light over here, so I can do the side angle right here. We've added in this studio. There's another computer over here that I use for following stats. When I was playing with angles, I used to have in the backdrop. I think we'll just keep like this, and I'll have something going behind here for a while since we'll be here for a bit. We've added some pizzazz as to all the newsletters, all the video casts, and we started the shorts. Shorts have gotten us in a little bit of hot water in some cases because people and trolls the internet. Shorts have also been something that have brought in many subscribers and people who have not been able to see this in the past. I used to do a thing where every Monday I would produce the live thing every Monday morning to all of my channels so that other folks would see it that had access to me and maybe join up. Turned into something that was unfortunately disappointing. To be honest, a lot of my friends, a lot of the family, a lot of folks that I thought were following me and following my ordeals, my trials and tribulations, weren't. One thing that I've learned about social media, especially these days, is people will jump on many things that are sort of the themes, and people will push things out there. So I see a lot of people doing their things, having their wins, growing their stuff on their personals. But when I put stuff on mine, it doesn't work out that way. It's one of those sad things. There's a meme out there about somebody putting out this best life on social media, nobody's seeing it, and then they just put out I'm done, and everybody loves it because they're tired of seeing their stuff. So we focused on doing conversational stuff on the Conversation Project's main website and some other things as well. I have some other things to show you about the past year as well. Inside of that, we're growing, we're doing well, we're keeping things going. We've gotten lots of feedback on how things are working, what things work, what things don't work, and some newer things we're playing around with. Going into the new year, we have added a daily poll to the actual fun stuff that's happening. We've actually limited some of the fun stuff and shortened it down, even though it's there. Instead of having 3 birthdays and 3 history lessons and the fun fact and the thing that we're celebrating, it's 1 birthday. Sometimes we'll sneak a couple in there. 1 history lesson, the thing we're celebrating, and now we're doing the daily poll. We'll see how that works out because it encapsulates things. It stretches out the program, but we've also worked on ways to shorten up the life and speed up the way we're running the scripts so we can run faster scripts. We're doing less rogue stuff and less sort of just top of mind stuff and keep it professional. I want to keep this thing professional. I have an idea of maybe putting this thing back on the radio next year. So for that, it has to be time wise and has to be bit more pithy and a bit more on point. I'm already speaking out with folks who want to join in and do some more conversational things. I'll have friends and some of those folks out there said who don't really pay attention to what's going on in the real life feeds, joining in to have conversations. And not because they're famous, not because I'm trying to get other bloggers in like I did in the past. These are just be people I know, people I trust, and some people I trust to go crazy. And I'm going to give them a chance to talk about the news stories of the week with their perspectives, because what I learned from doing that in the past, when you get someone's perspective that you don't expect, it is pure flash great money. It's awesome. I talked to one friend who I said he gave a perspective on a story that was supposedly a slam dunk sort of thing back in the Me Too stuff, where it was like, you know what? Maybe this isn't a Me Too issue. Maybe this is just a bad date and she just didn't get over it. and it was a thought process that it really was into there. So thank you so much, James, for that one. And he's going to be one of my first folks who are wrapping this thing up, pumping this thing in the year when we start working on that. It'll be a few weeks where we get that into there. Let's do a little bit of salesy stuff right now because we've got to keep things going. So if you can see this, whether live or going forward, these are a bunch of links we put onto the latter ends of the newsletter to promote us. And there are way too many calls to action, so it's way too much things to do. But what we have out there is you can find us at our website, which is thisistheconversationproject.com, facebook.com/, this is the conversation, and twitter.com/th_conversation. That's also x.com. Those are the feeds where you can find the news stories. We post news stories every 50 minutes on the feeds. If you're looking for us, maybe you are, maybe you aren't, you can find us on the feeds and you can see the stories, engage in the stories. That's how we get our news stories to actually talk about here on the Conversation Project. Look for us on TikTok to see the shorts. Look for us on YouTube to watch this thing if you're not watching on YouTube, and see YouTube shorts as well. The links are there. Look for the Conversation Project on TikTok, and this is conversationproject.com/YouTube, or at the Conversation Project, I believe is the short version there. You can go to our newsletter. You can go to our podcast, which is found at the website listing of the podcast. You can subscribe to us. Go to buymeacoffee.com/jclevelandpayne. That is the partnerships page link. That's subscribing to us, and you can subscribe. You can be a partner. This is we aren't using Patreon. I'm using Buy Me a Coffee as an alternative, and you can become a subscriber for monthly subscriptions to help us fund the action. Also, Cash App and Venmo, J Cleveland Payne, on what you use there. If you want to do a quick donation, we do not turn away money around here. There's a PayPal link as well, which is also J Cleveland Payne, and you can drop that as well. So we sold some stuff. We told you some background stuff. Let's do something that's a little bit more fun. We're going to right now get into some of the news stories for the year. Let's do 4 for 2023. Starting off with the first one in January, we talked about Candace Owens. Candace Owens defended Andrew Tate at the beginning of the year. Andrew Tate was arrested under house arrest for trafficking, for rape and sex stuff. She came out on her program and just said, I don't think he's a rapist. And it was sort of out of left field when she did this one, but Andrew Tate was essentially being held up by conservatives for whatever, when he just seemed just obviously scumbaggy. And as she's doing this, there's a report coming out on him where they found some text where he basically talks about how he likes rape, and rape's a great tool in his toolkit to get women to do his bidding. Not a good look. She would later go on to host a hour-long interview, which I'll be honest, I watched most of it, not all of it, because it was just pretty hard to take in. But we did one of our big drops on TikTok explaining, why this is, why I thought this was terrible and what you think about it. This is one of the first big viral things I've gotten on TikTok and on YouTube Shorts this past year. In February, we brought up Rick Isley, who was suing a guy named Young Gravy because Young Gravy had a track that did the impersonation of Rick Isley's "Never Gonna Give You Up" sort of song in the track. It was an impersonation. It wasn't a sample. It sounded a lot like him. Rick Isley wanted his money. Rick Isley kind of tried to get his money. In March, we had Clay Waller, who had to apologize because an audio came out that was from well in the past, but it came out at that point. Audio came out about him basically berating his tour bus driver and just being a jerk about it. He had to apologize for it and all this other stuff, and that's great. And that was one of the big stories for March. These stories we picked here for the top for the year, which is we went through every month, we sifted out and looked for the scores in on our sheets for the top stories for the weeks, and then picked one story that sort of caught my attention, as I thought was easy to get into. Of course, in April, we had no stories because on March 31st, there was a tornado, and then we were down for the month. So the big story for April was the fact that we had no story based on the tornado that happened the day prior, literally in March. That's our 4 of the top stories, the big stories. There are a lot of stories. So the stories we've spotlighted for the year in review, if you will. So If you have any questions, any comments about anything we do, you can always email me at the conversation inbox at gmail.com. You can always look for me online at J. Cleveland Payne on my socials or the Conversation Project socials as well for things that we're doing here. Now, going forward, we had a drive in February that we wanted. We used February because it was 28 days, a short month, to do a pledge drive, if you will, to garner people in to add more revenue to the project. It did not come out successful. We did not make the goals. We did not hit the numbers. So over the past year, we were not able to add in actual people on a full-time basis or full-time revolving basis, if you will. That's why a lot of the things we've had to implement have been in pieces. We've added some technology. We've played some stuff. I've got to now, because of equipment being old and failing, I've got to buy some computer equipment, so we'll figure that stuff out in the near future. But we did not get the influx of cash that we wanted going forward. This is me begging for the cash again. If what we're doing for the Conversation Project is something that you deem worthy of seeing out there more of, and by the responses and subscribers, 600 more subscribers over the year, doubling last year's, going to hit 1,000, and we'll see some growth from that. We are so blessed for that. Help us get to that next 1,000 past there and beyond, so we can do bigger things. That's what we want to see. That's what we want to do. That's what we're looking to have for Conversation Project. You can help us with that by going to our website, engaging with us, sharing what we have going on, and checking out the partnerships page and seeing there's a way. There's more than just the buy me a coffee at the partnership page. There's other ways to link up, including the Vimeo and the Vimeo, the Venmo, and the Cash App. But you can help us work things out well. We say always that the free stuff is the most important, because it is. If we have more subscribers, you have more eyeballs, and we make more monetization on those ends. If you have more subscribers, more people can see our ads and see our sponsors, and we'll go that route as well. Have more subscribers, we'll get more views and get more looks out that way. So subscribing is the best thing you can do, and watching us and sharing what you see is awesome. Emailing us so we know what we're doing well and not so well is also great as well. But the partnership stuff would help. We bring it up as much as possible. I don't really hate it when I see other people do it. Because I've been doing broadcasting for so long. It's just a part of the things. People ask for the money. You got to ask for the bag. You got to ask for it. And if enough people are into it enough times, you'll take care of itself. More than likely, you hit up a sponsor from someone that you watch or someone that you check out. So you don't necessarily have to pay them directly. That sponsor will keep sponsoring them because enough people get exposure, or you help sell someone directly and they thank you for it, and that keeps them on the air. We can use some help, and I'm saying that, so we can use some help. If you want to help us out, thank you. If you don't have the means, we appreciate you thinking about us. If you want to suggest other ways we can do that, we will take those as well. Let's do 4 more stories for the news, and then we'll go into some of the other things we've actually inputted into the news stories, some things we've added and taken away. So going back to some of the stories that we covered over the past year. In May, I call this the beginning of the end of the love for Harry and Meghan. Because in May, Meghan got a pretty big award, like as she tends to get. And it's one of those things where you don't really understand how they do what they do and why people care. I didn't really understand in the first place, because they are royals, but they're ex-royals, semi-royals, part-time royals. They left this gala, they left this event, and didn't want anyone to know where they were staying, which is fine. And so they took the paparazzi on a wild goose chase that got wild, and many geese were almost injured in the process. From this, many other things happened along the way of the year. They lost their the Spotify podcast. Many people did that. They had some backlash. People hated Harry's book, and some people actually loved it. People used the book for his father. His father thought it was an idiot. If one of those things like that. He thought he was an idiot until he realized that people were looking more favorable to Harry being an idiot than King Charles being King Charles and being a bad dad. There's a lot of things that happen where people essentially lost their love for Harry and Meghan. The luster of Harry and Meghan sort of, just the bedazzlement left. In May, this essentially was sort of the trigger moment, at least the point people starting to see where this happened, where I noticed it, say this is looking bad, and it got a little worse for the end of the year. For June, we talked about the pilot and the four passengers on the Titan submersible. They were announced officially dead in June after going down to see the Titanic. Now, this vehicle was, as you can see, if the picture, essentially a big old tin can wrapped in a tin can. It wasn't very much. It was pressurized so you can survive in it. Had enough air to go down and go back up. A couple days worth, essentially, just in case they were down there long enough. And it communicated via cell phone. It got into range of a transmitter and it texted back and forth that it was okay, things were going on. And at certain points in time, if there was trouble, it would tell the machinery to turn itself on and come back up if something happened, if they got incapacitated. Some catastrophic failure happened, and that did not happen. The ship went down to the bottom, stayed there. They found it via some pings, but it was so deep they couldn't get to it. They tried to figure out ways to get there because hopefully they thought people would be alive. They realized that the ship had depressurized. All aboard were essentially dead on in the bottom of the ocean. The ship that was basically driven by a Xbox controller with video cameras that people were really afraid to be on was something that some people wrote in and said, hey, this was the trip of a life, and some people that got through was like, this was the worst idea ever and I'm glad I survived. This was the story we picked for June. It's the top story. For July, we picked Carly Russell, and there's no reason why we could not. In July, Carly Russell found herself on the side of the road chasing a toddler she saw as she stopped at a rest station, a toddler on the side of the highway, in which she said she was kidnapped and kept for days, and then just sort of showed up back at home one day to find out the whole thing was a complete hoax. The story itself is way too long to get into without going into some deep detail. So, just if you've forgotten this one or you somehow missed it, Google Carly Russell and go through the whole thing. She is doing better mentally. She's dealing with some charges because you will from these sort of things. But the whole thing itself was a not it was crazy. It was odd. It was something that you would not have expected, but it happened. Big story for this year, July. Give us that one. And one more for August. This is one that also got us some virality, if you will. All of Anthony Oliver's music. Anthony Oliver Music, that's what he goes by when he does his music, is a man who does bluegrass music, fairly good music. The song in question, Richmond, North of Richmond, song I don't particularly care for, but I'm not the target demo. Not bad, just not great. Hit number one in the Billboard Hot 100 charts after its virality because it was on YouTube. It got basically played over and over again and played in clips and played in news stories because that's how we count things these days. It debuted as a number one song on the Billboard Hot 100, which offered up Oliver Anthony a world of opportunities for his music. He didn't take them. He didn't need them because he was doing fine with the way he was doing them. And oh, by the way, one of the reasons why this thing got a lot of love, conservatives jumped on the bandwagon of this song because it basically talked about the Richmond, North of Richmond, essentially people in D.C. who were controlling everything, making things worse for the country, and just not doing their jobs. They weren't literally the government. What was not controlling things properly. They were just running things for themselves until he pointed out to the conservatives, the Republicans, those guys who were saying, check out what he's talking about, these Democrats, that the song is actually about all of them. Democrats, Republicans. He wasn't a red state guy just because he had the big red beard and sang bluegrass music. He was talking about all the politicians screwing everyone over. And that made people love him even more because now both sides were kind of angry with him, and that is what people really like. So good news, and he's doing well. He did a couple of fairly big festivals and things, which he was doing anyway. Probably got a couple extra bigger gigs going forward. Did not take those big record deals because he didn't need them. He's doing fine. We're doing fine. We're all doing fine. And a lot of it is thanks to having a story like this to get us through for August. So we talked about the things we did for the fun stuff. What we did to essentially in the formatting of what's going on and try to both streamline the actual offerings and expand, if you will. Because the biggest push for the February fund drive was I had a person who volunteers to help me work on these things, who was going to actually come in and work on it daily, essentially become a co-producer or producer of the programs, producer of the whole shebang. Excuse me for a second. I'm not recording this like normal, and I guess I could mute myself for the sound for what's going on. I have issues swallowing a lot when I talk, and a little acid reflux as well. So the longer lives, when I don't pause enough, becomes an issue. So the point was to get a person to produce, help produce, and make things happen. Because I'm going to be totally honest and talk about my professional jealousy of a guy who also has a beard and also is bald, Michael Smerconish. I've been following that guy for over a decade, and when I got Sirius XM radio after he'd been there for a few years, it was one of the grandest things I can listen to him on the radio here. When I was working in news talk radio and talk radio before, when he was just a radio guy in Philly and syndication as well, and he talked about taking the leak, taking the jump, moving himself off of terrestrial radio because the callers and the atmosphere, because conservative talk radio, and most talk radio is conservative, what makes money, is based off of conservative talk, which essentially is red Republican, red meat, sort of bashing everybody that's not a red person. And it turned extremely Trumpy when Trump came in. So he took the leap and went to something so he can be independent, a true independent, and people still will put labels on back and forth. Things I've been doing for a while, just struggling wrong. In the last year or so, in 2 years, he's actually done, and he's blown up with it because he's got a platform and he's had all this background doing it. So it's not like he's necessarily stolen thing from me, but the time and the situations arose where things happened. I, of course, started this as a newsletter. He turned a daily. He turned in a daily newsletter. So turning in a daily newsletter that had news stories that we would talk about in the show. I had a book podcast. He was doing book interviews. He turned that into a podcast this year, things like that. So there are some things that happened that I got jealous of. So some things I've stolen from him, including the daily poll. The daily poll was something he put into his newsletter and on his talk show to get people to kind of engage and just sell stuff. That's why the daily poll's in there now. We're testing it. We'll see how well it will work. But getting off topic, the point was actually to get a person in to help me organize things. We're going to have the newsletter gathered together so to go off without a hitch, so I don't have to do that after work. We'd have the script for the actual show, getting the stories in, writing a better script, and using some AI tools, which are helping out as well. But when the AI tools aren't AIing very well, it would get down to me old schooling it, opening the story, copying bits and pieces of it, and eyeballing it to see what's going on. Someone who can actually take the AI tools or take the eyeballed copies of stories and write the scripts going forward. At the moment, I'm using a combination of ChatGPT when it wants to cooperate, which it will summarize the stories into short paragraphs that make sense, and it does a better job of not chopping off first names, last names than I do with WordTune. WordTune is an app, a program that's used mostly for rewriting things. It has a function that will read things and give you bullet points from that one, so it gives you the gist of it, all sorts of things. I've been using that from the get-go. In the last 2 months or so, ChatGPT, the paid version, has got a little better with pulling things out, even though paywalls and things are an issue. So sometimes I won't actually read it. So someone was going to actually pull that data, make the script fine, and work on the script while I was working on the other stuff, making the slides for the videos, being able to edit the sound faster and quicker on those ends, writing the newsletters, putting things in place, doing a few extra short videos to get them in place so they'll be there out there today to get some off of that. That was the goal of getting someone in to get paid for in the February drive. That didn't happen, so we don't have an extra person. It's still mostly me and some volunteers as things pop up. Hopefully, the next year, things will go fine. Now, back to more complaining about the tornado. I am a Christian. I'm not a prosperity gospel person, but I also happen to believe that God, if you wanted me to just sort of to the side and be quiet and just do this little thing because it kept me sane, which I was more than happy with doing. I'm a bit upset that I keep seeing, oh, here's my chance to grow and do more stuff, and I can't really monetize it and it's cost more money. But I don't think that God would have thrown a tornado in my way for me to, if you wanted me to do this. I think if you want me to fizzle out on this, I'd have less stuff, not have a tornado and determination and a need to actually make this thing work out and grow. I've had enough people who've given me enough good comments on this to say, hey, you're doing great. One of the really cool things about this last year is for the newsletter, which I don't have a link to add to. So look for the newsletter at thisisconversationproject.com, where we put the newsletter out every single week, where there's a link for you to subscribe to it every single day as it pops up. Is that I got a new subscriber to the newsletter who is actually news royalty here in Arkansas. He's an Arkansas news legend and someone who I have met a few times or I've seen at conferences and places before. Actually, technically worked with him or in the building with him, but don't particularly know him. I wouldn't say I would know him in any way. I'm not even going to say a friend of mine from back in the day, because we didn't actually work together. We never crossed paths in working relationships. But I've been in his presence at conferences and things like that. He reads my newsletter. He opens up links and reads stories into the newsletter. Something that's been completely awesome to see. Some other folks who have been followers of mine, or I've followed in the past, mostly in what they're doing. There are people out there who do ask me about what's going on, how things are going, and I do see them in the DMs, in the newsletter comments, going back and forth with things, knowing that a story I put it out there just for them, and they send me a little wink and nod in a text someplace, knowing they get stuff on there. And so there are some people who are giving support, but we need a little extra support. Here's the begging part again. Here's the slide where I ask for your help again. And we're going to go from bottom to top this time, because a lot of this is about the funds, to be honest. So from bottom to top, you can subscribe to our service and subscribe as a monthly donor by going to buymeacoffee.com/jcliffandpayne. That's what we use instead of Patreon. We also actually have a link subscription that still lives on our PayPal page. I haven't found a way to actually get rid of it yet. It keeps popping up that I owe someone a subscription update, which is me, and I've canceled the subscription, so it's something I can't really kill properly. But it also has links to Cash App and Venmo. J. Cliff and Payne is where you can find us there, my main handle. It's the easiest way to do that, and things get processed as need be. For helping us out in just the process of being out there, and we need you to do these things and share these things, our website, thisisconversationproject.com. Check out the website. All these things are there, plus other things you can do, including finding out information about the subscribing to the newsletter. Facebook and Twitter, or X, that's where the feeds are. If you follow the feeds, you will see news stories we post every 50 minutes. We have stories that are pre-fed right now, so you can see them right now if you go to Facebook and Twitter online, and you can engage in the stories. The stories you engage in gives us things to talk about. The things we talk about gives us things to create in our content, gives us things to put out there, things to put the ads to, and things to grow, if you will. Facebook.com, This Is Conversation Project. Twitter.com, th_conversation. Slash is there, of course. On TikTok, look for us at The Conversation Project. Search for the Conversation Project well on YouTube. That's a short way to find us there for videos there if you're not watching us there. On Facebook, follow us there from Facebook. Twitter's there. We're on Instagram as well. This is Conversation Project. We're trying to get more Instagram stuff out there. This may actually be fed on Instagram right now. We think we put out there. There's a way to live feed Instagram now. It just takes a little extra effort. We think we clicked it and got that working there. We take the audio from the Daily Show and the Weekly Wrap Up, and we take out the Daily Show, the Weekly Wrap Up, and the Story of the Week podcast. Another story one we're not doing this week because the stories to choose from are just way too depressing. So we went with the yearly one for this week. Those are there in the podcast link at the website. And once again, subscribe and help us out. Be a monthly subscriber by going to buymeacoffee.com/jcliffandpayne. Links to all those things are also on the website. So if you want to go back and see them, they are there as well. Let's do the last 4 stories of the year that we did in the yearly wrap up. Starting off with the story for September, which should have been a big story, which was a big story, but should have been a bigger story for the year, as Aaron Rodgers was going to show the folks in New York how the Jets should be playing football, and he showed the folks in New York how the Jets are always disappointed in football. Basically, getting injured on the first drive as a Jet in real time, being out for the season, teasing the fact that he could come back if there was a slight playoff chance for the end of the year. Once the Jets were eliminated from the playoffs officially, probably about 3 weeks ago, Rodgers was like, "Yeah, I'm not doing this." Rodgers also had some controversy this year because one, they were worried whether he'd stick around for the year, and two, no matter what was happening, they found out that his time on the Pat McAfee show was paid. No one knew that. He was a weekly contributor, weekly spot on the Pat McAfee show, which brought people to watch and listen to it, either on the YouTube, on the whatever radio, terrestrial, non-terrestrial it is at the moment. He lost a radio sponsor. He was on Mad Dog and lost it, and on ESPN, which is a weird sort of marriage that they're having there. But that Rodgers was actually being paid to be on there, not just showing up because he was a good guy. Some people don't like that. Most people don't like it when it's not set up front and people find out about it in the back end. And so that happened this year. We'll see him play next year, most likely as a Jet, and then we'll see if that 2 years turns into life in Minnesota, like that other guy that played in Green Bay. In October, the full Taylor Swift was already a buzz. She was going all year with her Eras tour, making big money. She had the Summer of Love in the movie theaters, coming in behind the Barbenheimer whole phenomenon and bringing in her concert movie, just her taping her concert, which was a big deal for that. People showing up and dancing in the aisles and singing "Anti-Hero" and all sort of stuff in her, and Swifty Ing Ying. She also started dating Travis Kelsey. First, they were just hanging out. She was showing up for games. The NFL was loving the fact that these weird, tweenish, and some middle-aged ladies were watching to see Travis Kelsey dance around with Travis's mom, or see Taylor Swift dance around with Travis's mom and Patrick Mahomes' girlfriend, and wonder who these people actually were. In October, there was an article, she did an interview where she said she didn't want to be a distraction. She likes Travis Kelsey, has fun at the game. She's a chief for now, maybe for life. It looks like this thing may actually go. It's only been months, and there's no weirdness. Although there was a thing about her being married in the back end, which is a whole sort of different kerfuffle. But Taylor Swift showing love, showing awesomeness, and being a Chiefs fan. Although the Chiefs not looking like Chiefs this year, so maybe she is a distraction because Kelsey, since they've been outed and she with the thing, Kelsey's not been the same, and it's just been kind of noticeable. In November, we mourn the passing of Matthew Perry at the age of 54. This is from side effects, essentially, of ketamine. Ketamine is a drug used by people who are dealing with depression, also dealing with addiction, that essentially puts you in a mellow state. How mellow state? Sometimes so mellow you literally just can't move, can't function. And that's what happened here, essentially. Matthew Perry had gotten a dose of ketamine days before. It has a half-life of about a few hours, so they suspect that he got some pills from somewhere, took some pills while sitting in his hot tub. The effects of the ketamine meant that he basically lost the ability to control or the means to want to move, found himself underwater, and drowned. Drowning, the main cause of death, the secondary cause, ketamine being what it did. A lot of people mourning his loss. And December, which wrapped up, one of the reasons why we're not doing the weekly wrap up is not only did Christmas weekend have a lot of people dying unnecessarily and dying by the hands of people that have just been kind of gruesome, but the whole month of December had a lot of just death and shooting. This one happening early. We wrapped this thing up for the thing early on because the point was actually to record it early and take this week off. In December, a shooter, a professor going to UNLV, well, not a UNLV professor, went to the campus and shot the campus up, killing 3 people. He went on campus with a note and some names of people who apparently were in the process of hiring. He did not get hired there. He was applying for jobs across Nevada, did not get a job at all, and went to UNLV to cause havoc, which happened there for the incident. People on the list were not found. They didn't get targeted, but two other professors and a student did die from injuries on that day. And so we were wrapping it up on a somber note, unbeknownst to me, uh, expecting to do this coming in for this year to kick off the first of the year. There'd be so many more shootings, so many more deaths, so many more just drama on this level to come out of 2023. So 2023 is wrapping up on a dour end, unfortunately. Um, we averted a debt ceiling, but we had to get rid of a speaker, although we had to get a speaker, and then we have an even weirder speaker right now. So we have those things to deal with. So all that's happening. We have an election coming up, and right now, literally as I'm speaking, they are trying to determine whether the guy most likely to run as the Republican nominee, the most guy likely to win and get the most votes for people to vote on him, is actually qualified to be on the ballots because he may have been an insurrection or not, or and whether he was or not may or may not disqualify him. He could have been in an insurrection, but because no one's actually said the word insurrection in court or enough courts yet, that doesn't disqualify him. And people want to vote for him, which is the more crazy thing. On the other end of that, there's a bunch of other people who are playing for that spot who have no chance of getting that spot, who have no chance of being the VP. So we're not sure why they're actually running. Only one of them is actually attacking this guy, Donald Trump, directly. The other ones are playing pussyfoot with him and just not doing whatever. The other end, the Democrats have Joe Biden, who I've said over and over again, even as I voted for him 3.5 years ago, this guy's too old. I really don't want him. But the alternative is too crazy and old. I don't want him either. We deserve better. I'm not sure how we're going to get better. We hope we get there, though. But we will cover it in the next year for the Conversation Project with what's going on. We're going to be here. Now, I've given some tales of woe. I've given some big old sort of crocodile teal sort of issues. But let's end this thing on more of a positive level. We talked about the growth that we had for 2023. Amazing growth, outstanding growth. And we've been able to see a lot of stuff. We've talked to a lot of you in a lot of places that we've hadn't talked to in the past. It's been amazing going forward. We've gone to a lot of changes, a lot of upgrades, a couple of downgrades, testing some things here and there, and doing things for pithiness. We think we have a nice little flow for the show. What may change in the future, and timing was an issue right now, the biggest reason why we do this and record this at 5:50 in the morning is there's very little that people can do to interrupt me at 3 in the morning until 5 in the morning until about 6:30, 7 o'clock, where I have to take my daughter to school. So with that time, since I can't be bothered, can't be, no one's going to call me at 4 in the morning to say they're locked out of their account for their password from work. They'll call me at all other times of the day. They may call me in a moment because I'm expecting some calls for some work to do on Saturday. But 4 a.m. seems to be the crunch time, and I'm up. Although because of the numbers, because people don't really wake up for morning podcasts, because people aren't doing this thing live as it is, I record it live because it's the easiest way to get it into the system. It doesn't get promoted till 12 hours later because YouTube does that. We may shift this to a later time. I'm not sure how much later, based on time-wise and how we can shift schedules at work. We're going to see how that works out. We're going to add a couple things here or there. They're going to be hopefully more conversational. We're going to bring in more voices, more people I'll have conversations with. There'll be folks that some of them are in media and some of them are in news, so they'll have that slant, that perspective. But some of them are just folks I know that have big opinions on things, and you'll want to hear their big opinions. They'll give you things that are funny, things that are poignant, things from a perspective that are great, and hopefully we can use this to grow into what we used to do for the conversation and have the weekly conversations there. Hopefully this will grow into something that's greater on that end, and we can blow that up going forward because the conversation is meant to be more conversational. Hopefully we get more of you out there. You want to talk to me once we get this thing in some sort of a good flow. We'll offer it up to you guys out there, and if you will do this, the mic checks, we'll do what's going on, we'll do the checks on the technology, make sure that you sound well, and if you're sober, something that we always checked on for people on the radio, sober, not so much just not drinking, but what you're saying is either sound, or if you're crazy, we'll take you anyway. We just make sure that you're actually not drunk, because then that's liabilities things going on. If you are not drunk but still say crazy things, and as long as you don't drop any f bombs, oh, people love that stuff. We'll see how that plays going forward. The poll question will live on for a bit, and we think it's going to stay as um, a weekday poll. We've been trying to do a daily poll, like went Sunday, Saturday, and Sunday. Mike Superconish does one every single day because he has a newsletter every single day. We only have a newsletter 5 days a week with the reporting, so we're gonna drop those ambitions as well. We want you to report. You see that the poll question is usually a quick yes or no. We may drop in a 3 question thing, or some actual changes. Usually just yes or no. Drop in that so we have some ideas and opinions to work on that, because that will help us drive our coverage from other things going forward. I'm going to put up the other slide for what we did for the year in review, but we do this every week in the weekly wrap up. We do this often in all the things going on. Want to remind you also, well, that in the split screen, because the way the screen we're using is there as well. The website is theconversationproject.com. This is theconversationproject.com. This is theconversationproject.com. Stop by the website. We have a sponsors page where it links to various sponsors. When you buy from our link, it's an affiliate link. We get a payback from that. We have the partnerships page with various links where you can partner up with us. That's ways to pay us directly so we can get things done around here. Email address is theconversationinbox@gmail.com. I want you to tell us how to do things better. Do that for free. Simple, easy. And our feeds on Facebook and Twitter, which we'd like you to go to, because that's how we get the information from what to talk about every single day. We know what to talk about and what we're not talking about. And just because I love a story, if there's not enough engagement via the numbers, chances are I won't talk about it. Sometimes I'll sneak them in there. Sometimes I'll pop them there. A lot of times when I do the teases stories, there's stories that I'm pretty sure aren't going to get any love or enough love to be in the range to talk about, but I want to get something out there anyway. So I'll sneak that in there so I can get that in there. A lot of Deion Sanders stuff for teaser stories, because at some point he stopped being as irrelevant as he was at the beginning of the football season. And also, as we're doing this, whenever you see this, I will tell you honestly, this has been a completely terrible year. It's been a great year for learning and growing. I did a lot of stuff for this right here over the last 6 months, using some work I was doing over the last 12, 18 months or so, just kind of gathering things, whatever, editing, re-editing. This week, I published this book, These Will Get You the Job. This is a book of traits to use if you're doing your job search and your resume to get you settled so you can get better at getting those jobs. I published Master Your Money. This is a book that, even though I am not the best at mastering money, I use some tools, some resources, a lot of books and study from trying in the past that'll help you get yourself right with your money. Some very simple things to get you straight in your money. And I've gotten a lot of good comments for that one, feedback from that one, from people who actually are good at money and did need something like this as a guidance. And this one right here, simple tips for business success. One of my other brands, which is Master Your Money, and this one, they all sort of roll together in, is for business questions answered here, because as doing personal development and business coaching, helping people work on stuff, helping them get things in order. That was a book that was produced to help people basically do the same thing as the Get Better for Your Job for Job Stuff books. These are simple tasks, and the money book as well. Simple tasks, simple things you can do to get your business in order, to get things going on. These are things to help you go with that. I published 3 books this year. I can say I wrote probably 3 times that, using some tools and using some editing stuff, and been kind of editing, re-editing over and over again. So I've written many of those in the last 12, 18 months, and it just kind of get to the point where I just needed something to do. My goal is, once again, publish a memoir style book, although this year won't be so much memoir and stories of people, but essays and thoughts for my 50th birthday. This will be called So 50 Happened, the companion to So 40 Happened. You can find that on Amazon. Find all those at Amazon as well. So 40 Happened is a terrible book, but we're going to use a lot of lessons from that one to write the essays going forward for the next one because 10 years have passed. A lot of things learned in life, a lot of things learned in this year specifically, even though, as I've said, this has been a terrible, horrible year. Oh, why am I saying that? Because I wanted actually to talk about the suicide prevention lifeline. That's what this is really all about. I got sidetracked about the things I did, but I did do some things, did learn some stuff, and did grow. But not having a house for 9 months, having to be nomadic on that end, watching a lot of family members, a lot of people in the neighborhood go through a lot of stuff, going through a bunch of other things, and having some significant deaths this year. I had a best friend die all of a sudden. I had a cousin die all of a sudden who literally had a funeral day before Christmas Eve. Other folks of note should mention the people I've known over time who have passed, have lost going over time, as this has been a pretty serious year. And to be honest, rolling in 2 days from now, not looking so great. Plans of actions of just hard stuff inside, saying, oh, we'll figure it out, hadn't happened. And I've been in places where I've needed to talk to people because it seemed like this was the end and there was no reason to even keep going. I've had those conversations this year about why I might keep on going. If you're having those conversations with yourself, have a conversation with someone else who will tell you why it's important to keep going. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is at 988. The old numbers still work. The whole 8 number still works out there. But if you just pull out your cell phone, anytime, anywhere, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, English and Spanish people are there to listen, to talk, to text with you, to help you walk yourself through whatever it is that you're going through right there. Whatever is happening, and I trust me, we're looking for a lot of great big positive things for this next year, but we're needing a lot of great big positive things next year in general because this last year was terrible, and the start to this year, rolling into I don't know when I'll have a house, is not exactly great. If you're in a situation where things are not exactly great, talk to someone. There are local facilities. If you are a religious person, that's the job of pastors and imams and holy people are to talk you through things like this. There are counseling services. There's therapy. There's this lifeline here at 988. Call or text them 24 hours a day to get that conversation, to have that conversation. Otherwise, we'll keep having conversations as Patriots in the Conversation Project. I thank you so much for spending the hour with me. This hour was not expected. This hour didn't go, I can say it didn't go as planned because there wasn't a real plan. It was just sort of going through the motions, going through some things, going through what we have going forward. Big things for the year is we don't intend to go anyplace. We've got to replace some equipment. We've got to find a new place to stay and make things work. We've got to add in some things and subtract a couple other things that work. But you can tell us how to make that work. Email us at theconversationinbox@gmail.com. That is the most important thing you can do right now. Send me kind thoughts. Send me evil thoughts because I'll read them all. Send me things I can do to do things better. Send me things I can do to make things less worse. And send me what you want to do to help. I'm asking, at the begging stage. We need some help. We need this thing to grow. As I said earlier in this recording, God didn't hit my house or the tornado, my family with this thing to work through for me to stop doing this. There's a bigger need, a greater need for information and conversation and going on. And while I've given up on the fact that I think I can have a conversation with everyone, I think I can bring in more people to have more civil conversations. There is a need to at least put out some of the information. And trust me, some of the information I put out there, from the perspective that's put out there, I'm not that keen of either. But you got to know what each side is talking about. You got to know what everyone's going in there. And some things are pretty cool, interesting to see just because it's there. Some things you've got to know what is being said so you know how to counter it. There's a lot of that we're putting out here going forward. Stay limber, stay hydrated, stay on task. 2024 is going to be a big year. We've got plans in motion. We got things we're going to try to do. I want to make sure that we're doing them with you in this upcoming year. We hit 60 minutes on something that wasn't supposed to happen. Thank you so much for being with us on this thing. We'll see you, since I may drop a short video here or there, but more than likely, we'll see you come Monday when we do have things you might have heard when it will be 2024.